Thank you. Great to be here. So, a number of years ago, the great Buddhist meditation teacher Thich Nhat Hanh from Vietnam was going to be leading a couple of retreats in the U.S., and it was happened to coincide during the High Holy Days, and there was kind of the team around him thought, well, maybe there might be some Jews there. Maybe we should have a rabbi. And they called Reb Zalman, and Reb Zalman ended up sending me. But before he did, he sent some books to this teacher, and that were about Judaism, so that he would kind of understand what his students were doing during these high holy days. And on the first night of the retreat, it would happen to be the eve of Rosh Hashanah, and I had lit the candles were lit there, and he began the introduction to the retreat by saying, "It's my, to acknowledging his Jewish students that were there, and saying, it was his understanding that the essence of Jewish practice was living every moment in the awareness of God's presence." And then he paused and he said, "And that is mindfulness." And it was just just a wonderful moment of connection, to understand that's our practice, to live every moment in the awareness of God's presence. That is the same as mindfulness. He recognized it immediately, and we have a name for that in our practice, in our tradition, that is devekut. And devekut became kind of a Hasidic ideal of how we could live our lives with a constant remembrance of God's presence while we're still engaged with the world. And so for me, that's the goal of my practice. And every day I sit, and my intention is to lay that foundation of the awareness of God's presence underneath my life. And for those 20 minutes in the morning, I give my full attention to that possibility. So I have found in doing this practice that there are 4 components to it. And if Jordan, if you would share the handout that I had about the practice of devekut. So what I noticed is that when I can do this practice of devekut, which is sitting in the awareness of that presence, that the prerequisite to that practice is the ability to focus my attention. I do when I can focus my attention, it's like a muscle inside me, that ability to focus attention, which then allows me to let go of that focus. And the letting go of that focus is what happens in meditation. So the second 2 components are korban and tshuva. So the first, the ability to focus, this is the prerequisite. I need to work on that first. And then during this, so what I do in my practice is that I chant as a focus practice. As I'm chanting, I am focusing so exactly on the sounds that I'm making, on the feeling in my mouth, on the breath that's moving through me. I make it a focused meditation, and at the end of the chant, I stop, I let go of my focus, and I say to God, the great mystery, I just want to be with you. I just want to be with you, which means just to be. And then what happens is my thoughts begin to happen. So step 2 and 3 are about what happens during my meditation practice. And the second component, I call it korban. Korban is the word in Leviticus that is talking about the sacrifices, but its root really is from the root of coming close to God. So this idea of korban is that every time a thought arises, a thought, a feeling, anything with content at all, I let that go. I do a korban, and I do that with great love, great tenderness, great gentleness, and immediately I let go of the content of that has arisen for me. And number 3 is tshuva, the art of returning. And after I've let go of that thought, I do the tshuva, which means return. And I call it the art of returning. And I'm returning not to a focus, but to an intention to be in God's presence. And every time I return, that intention gets stronger in me. And then the fourth, Mesirat Nefesh, is the long-term effect of having a practice like this. And it is over time, the surrendering of the small self to that transforming presence. I'm inviting that presence into my life to be a constant awareness, and it has an effect on my inner being. And yet, sometimes I resist that. And so the Mesirat Nefesh is the whole process of surrendering to that transforming presence. And it just then sends me even kind of with more intention back into the practice. So what I'd love to do with you in this practice is to do a chant together that is, to me, inspires me in the practice of devekut. And then at the end of the chant, find inside you that expression. You can say it out loud or say it inside you, to say, oh, I just want to be with you. As we enter into the silence, and in that silence, each time any content arises, immediately do the korban and the tshuva. And so it is sending a message to our soul that there's nothing more important than this awareness of God's presence. Nothing I could think up is more important than that. And so no matter what it is, I let it go immediately. And I return to the intention to live with this awareness. Yitzhak defines devekut as God consciousness imbued with love. God consciousness imbued with love. And it's meant to be the continual, the foundation of our lives. So we'll chant these words, bring your focus to it, and then we will let go. Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu, Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu, Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu, Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu. Join me, bring all of your attention. Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu, Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu, Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu, Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu. Find that attention. Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu, Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu, Yilech na Adonai Bekir beinu Yelach Adonai Bekir beinu. Once more with our focused attention. Yelach Adonai Bekir beinu Yelach Adonai Bekir beinu Yelach Adonai Bekir beinu Yelach Adonai Bekir beinu. As we enter the silence and find that intention, that yearning that says, I just want to be with you. I just want to be. And whatever emerges from the mind, whatever content, into the art of letting go, the art of returning to that intention. So I invite you to open your eyes, and if we could stop sharing the handout, we could just take a moment to look around the Zoom room and appreciation for the support that we get from each other for our practice of devekut. And it feels like we can remind each other of that presence just by the quality of our presence that we bring. We can remind each other to have some of our attention just in that the foundation of our love, which is the place of our connection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Shefa Gold, as always. Very special practice today. Let's seal that practice as we do each day, offering those of you who are in mourning, or if you're observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, we ask that you please stay present for those who are, and offer your presence as your loving presence, as Shefa just mentioned, support in their time of loss. You can put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. And if you're are reciting Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitgadal, Yitkadah, Shemei Rabba, Yamad, Yivrach, Yivitei, Yamich, Hayefon, Hayefon, Hayed, Beit Yisrael, Agalah, Yisman, Karid, Amen, Amen.
Amen.
Shmei Rabba
Shmei
Mevarach,
Rabba,
Lam Ulameh,
Maya,
Barach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yaseh,
Alef,
Hadar,
May
V'yitaleh,
Kucha, Brefu,
V'yitalam, Shemei Dekusha, Brefu.
Brefu,
La'ela, Mikol, Birachata, V'shirata, V'shbechata, V'nechamata, V'hamiran,
Miran Diama,
V'amuna,
Bimuame,
V'imru, Amen.
Shlama Rabba Bin Shmei Abbas,
Ishlama Rabba
Yoko
bin
Yisrael,
Ishmael,
Lo,
Hayin,
May
Israel,
Se Shalom
Amen,
Bimrama,
Amen.
Yatsa Shalom,
Shalom
Reinu
Bimromav,
Yoko Yisrael, Bimru,
Shalom,
Amen.
Koyakara, Koyosef, Yemru, Amen.
Amen.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us today for this beautiful practice. If you're leaving us now, we hope you stay safe and well, and hope you will join us tomorrow for our next session. We'll be led tomorrow by Cantor Kareth Spencer Shapiro, um, who actually is subbing in for Yiska Smith, who's under the weather, but hopefully will lead us next week instead. And if you would like to stay on, of course, you're always welcome to for conversation with our teacher today, Rabbi Shefa Gold, about today's teaching and practice. And looking forward to diving into this practice of devekut with Rabbi Shefa. And if you'd like to use this time simply to sit with us, you can turn off the volume on your computer or device and just use the container of this community to continue to sit with your practice today. Welcome to do that as well. If you have a question, please put it in the chat and preface it by writing question in all caps. And I'll keep an eye out for that. Shefa, before we got on, you joked that you were trying to squeeze into 7 minutes a full retreat's worth of teaching. So first, I want to say kol hakavod. That was a great 7-minute retreat, in the teaching part and the practice part. In addition, I really appreciate. I mean, you lifted up a few things today that I really am looking forward to hearing you expand on. First of all, you use the Hebrew term, Jewish mystical term, devekut, which for some people may be a new term. I think, it's worth unpacking that a little bit. Like, what does that mean? And I think you were kind of using that interchangeably. Tell me if I'm wrong. With when we throw the word mindfulness around in a spiritual context, we're talking about devekut. And I loved that that very pithy description that you brought at the beginning about the retreat, about what is Jewish spiritual practice. My paraphrase of what I heard you say is living with awareness of being in the presence of the divine, moment by moment. Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. To live every moment in the awareness of God's presence.
Right. Live every moment in the awareness of God's presence. And this is devekut, which literally means adhering to or cleaving. There's like no separation, right? Devekut means like we're in mindfulness practice. Sometimes teachers use the word flush connected to. I just wanted to invite you, if someone stopped you on the street and said, I heard about this term devekut. What's that all about, Rabbi Shefa Gold? Anything more you would say about it?
Yeah, I mean, I could say a lot more. I could say a lot more. That's what I
A
think.
whole retreat, probably.
Yes, the whole retreat. It's a sense of connection with the wholeness of life,
Mm-hmm.
and a sense of my own place in it, my own integral place in all of the whole cosmos. And it is. I liked, Yitzhak Spaun's definition of God consciousness imbued with love. So it's not neutral in the way. There is a loving intention to connect myself with a larger reality, which then has a profound impact on how I walk through this smaller reality, how I respond, how I deal with the daily, everything that I deal with every day
Mm-hmm.
is informed or is in the context of that awareness of God's presence. And that's the idea, is that, and when I've known about this devekut for a long time and really have taught it, but when I felt myself like I am on the path of love, and I want to dedicate myself to the path of love, the message that I got was, well, then you have to that devekut is the foundation of the path of love. That you can't be on the path of love unless you are connected in that way, and a kind of a connection, and the idea of this Hasidic kind of ideal of devekut means that it's not like I go do my spirit, I do my religious life and then I go live my other life. There's no separation. It's like it's I guess what in Buddhist practice would be called the continuity of practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's always there, and I can always call on it. That's what I'm establishing, that connection, because I need to be connected to that larger reality
Right.
that I call God,
Right.
or else I am overwhelmed and I
Hmm.
am pushed around and I am kind of blown into kind of my default places by the happenings of the world and of my life.
Right. Well, boy, do we need that now. I am full of questions. One, I'm just gonna like, because my memory is starting to fade. I'm gonna just bookmark. I want to ask you about the role of love because I know that is central to your teaching, and in fact, you have a new app coming out about love at the center. Um, about whether it's possible to have that sense of connection without that or not, or what do you mean by that? So, but there are a lot of good questions in the chat I want to get to first. One of which, Harris is saying in English, the word cleave, or devekut, I think he translated as cleaving, which is often translated as. It can mean connect tightly to something, or it can mean split, right? Like cleave
Yeah.
something apart. And he wants to know whether the Hebrew, I don't think it does, has that dual meaning, but it's just still an interesting question.
Yeah, it definitely has some paradox in it. And I
Mhm.
guess in modern Hebrew, it's like connected to the glue
Glue,
is.
right? Devek is glue,
Yeah, the
right?
glue to hold what holds it all together. What,
Hmm.
what holds me? What,
Right.
um, and and there may be some, I can think of some cleaving from the content of my mind, because
Hmm.
that is something that um, that art of letting go of content is so it's so radical, because it doesn't matter what it is, I'm letting it go,
Hmm.
and that's the way that, you know because the mind gives you things that say, no, no, this is really important, you have to think
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
And so to have an attitude of, like, it doesn't matter what it is, it's content.
Hmm.
And in this moment of my practice, I'm establishing a place of ayin, of nothingness,
Right.
because that's the only place that I uh, can can be in that total being place. And the idea is that all the beingness is what underlies my doing in the world.
Yeah.
That's what I want. That's what I
Oh my
want.
God, this is for me, this is such a rich conversation. I'm also, thinking that dual meaning, devekut doesn't really have that dual meaning as it does in English, but we can play around with it, you know, and it does sort of capture that paradox of we do live in a dualistic reality and in that unitary, non-dual reality at the same time. And so the
And it's
connecting and
not.
splitting up,
Yeah, it's not that.
toggling back and forth.
Not going back and forth. It's saying that constant awareness
Yeah,
is what holds me, and inside it, I can experience what duality is. But I
right.
know that it is held by that unity consciousness.
Yeah. So that leads into another, question in the chat, which I have a question too, because devekut, in some ways for me, doesn't work that as well because it means attaching to something outside, like the imagery is of attaching to something external, um, cleaving to something. But the phrase you used, and I want to get to the context of that too, of
Yeah.
God go in our midst, Bakir Benu, within us, right? And so Lori wrote, I love and can feel the idea of bringing the divine Bakir Benu inside my heart and all my cells like stardust. The question is how this reconciles with the third step of 12-step recovery, where we're asked to hand over our will to God's will, which seems to separate us as if there's two entities, God and us. So this
Think that.
brings in that
Yeah.
question about, Bakir Benu. How do we, especially when we're sitting or chanting, um, if we're experiencing this divine as external to us or apart from us and we're attaching to it versus it's something that is actually within us, either emerging from within us or, in every cell of our being, in our bodies, in all aspects of the self.
I don't experience that myself as a contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's both, and
Mm-hmm.
I that I'm connecting myself to this awareness, to this like higher kind of function of my consciousness. It's like the higher function is the one that connects to the wholeness in
Mm-hmm.
which this is all happening. So I want to stay with that connection, and at the same time be in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
I think to answer about the third step,
Right.
this it's that number four part of the components, the Mesirat Nefesh, which is the surrendering of the small self to that transforming presence. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the small self keeps wanting to reassert its identity, and in a way that kind of pushes away the big picture. And so there's a constant surrendering, like that the whole process that I'm in, my whole life, is this process of surrendering this little me
Right.
to the big me that is, part of the oneness,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and working with my resistance to that.
What about the so okay, so let's turn to that question. I really would like to go I'm going to share, want to try to see if we can squeeze in a quick review of the four steps, but I do want to ask you about love, because it seems to me that theoretically at least one could have a sense of connection to all being, but not necessarily have that sense of it being a loving presence. So where does that come in? How do
You know,
we intuit that?
when I started to go to mindfulness retreats, I felt like, oh, this is great, but it's so dry. It's so dry. And I wanted to bring like I have this great power in my heart, this great love that is what connects me to that larger reality. And I don't want to push that aside. I want to actually build my love as being the fuel for my practice. Um, there's this there was this wonderful story that I heard from Father Thomas Keating, and he was teaching a meditation retreat for a group of religious, and one of them came up to him and said, "Oh, Father, I just can't do this practice. My mind wanders 1,000 times." And he said to her, "Oh, how wonderful, 1,000 opportunities to return to God." And I just, to say that about my meditation practice, that every time my mind wanders, there's this, that tshuva that I do is an affirmation of my love. And it then strengthens my love. So
Hmm.
I I like to think of my meditation practice as a devotional practice. I am
Right.
growing my love. I'm growing my love. When I grow my love for God, the oneness, the
Hmm.
mystery, then I'm filled up and I'm overflowing, and the world gets that overflow. My husband gets the overflow. The trees get the overflow. It's like, but really, my prime relationship is one that I want to pay attention to and charge up every day, so that I'm in the fullness of my love, so that I can give the overflow out as my life, as my service.
Beautiful. And we also are beneficiaries of that. Um, so I have there are a lot of questions, but actually, how would you feel about closing out with one more round of that chant? You okay with that?
I'm fine. I'm fine with
Okay.
you.
Okay. Would you mind chanting a little more? Okay. I think that's better than Q&A, frankly.
Well,
Um,
I love
so
questions, though.
they're good, but I think it would be really nice to put a seal on this with one more round of that beautiful chant.
So I want to just say that the context that this comes from
Right.
is the story of kind of Moses on the journey, having a realization that says, "I don't want to do this without you. My life has no meaning. This whole journey has no meaning unless you are at the center of it." And so that place of devekut is actually it is essential to taking this journey of transformation. Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu. Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu. Yilech na Adonai bekirbeinu. Yelech na Adonai bekirbeinu.
As always, thanks so much, Rabbi Shefa Gold. Beautiful day. It was a beautiful practice today. And thanks so much, as always, for leading us, and all you have contributed. Maybe before we go, Jordan, if you don't mind putting the link for those who are interested in checking out Rabbi Shefa's upcoming retreat in Elul in September in New Jersey. And of course, you can check out all of Shefa has quite an amazing website with unbelievable amounts of resources and chants, and at least two apps,
Going on
third still to come. Rabbi Shefa Gold .com. There you go. Okay. All right, Shefa. Great to be with you as always. Many blessings, everyone.
I thank you for your practice.